One nice thing about technical analysis when you're using it for trading securities is it can help really make sense of things that don't seem to be making a lot of sense at first, right? So it can actually, because it's based on supply and demand and market sentiment and momentum and all this other types of things that are around that, you can get a feel for what the market's thinking with an individual security, for example, that might not be as apparent for somebody who's just watching in the news or using other types of analysis. So technical trading can help you be a better trader. If you use fundamental analysis, is fine, and technical trading can help you be a better investor along those lines, but it also can help explain the unexplainable, so to speak. And let's use an example of this that I think is a real classic example that I think a lot of people struggled with during this period of time. So we're going to go in our time machine, all right? So we're going to go in our time machine and we're going to go backwards in time, and we're going to look at a particular security. We're going to look at a stock security here. So we're going to look at, we're going to go all the way back, well, maybe not that far back, but we're going to go all the way back to the year 2020. Remember 2020? Great year, right? COVID and all that. So you're going back to the year 2020. And one thing that happened in the year 2020 is Tesla. You may know them, of course, for their electric vehicles or EV vehicles. They do a lot of things too. And that's one reason their stock rose so much in 2020 was not just because of their vehicles, but also their batteries and other things that they could do potentially in the industry. And so in the year 2020, Tesla stock went up 700%. Now understand the typical stock market might go up, let's say 10% over longer periods of time. So something to go up in a year 700%, that's unusual to say the least. And it really had many people flummoxed, right? Many people are using fundamental indicators. I use fundamental indicators. At times we'll look at it and say, wow, look, the price to earnings ratio is through the roof. This doesn't make any sense. Tesla's way overvalued. I mean, it went up 100%, which is a crazy high number, 100%. It was way overvalued then, and it later went up to 700%, right? And then common sense would say, and you'd hear the news media talking about, a rise that high, especially that fast, that's bound to fall, right? That's a bubble, right? The bubble has gone up so high, so fast, it's going to burst and come way down. So if you buy at the peak, it's going to burst and you're just going to lose a whole bunch of money. It's a bubble, right? You'd hear a lot of articles and things around that. But actually, when we applied, I went back and I applied, if you look at some technical analysis, even a little bit of technical analysis actually showed a truer story of what was going on with Tesla and really around market sentiment and market sentiment indicators. So we're going to look at the Bollinger Band of year 2020 on Tesla. If you haven't seen that lesson, go back and if you watch this part, but if it doesn't make sense to go back and watch that lesson on watch the lesson on Bollinger Bands, either skipping forward or ahead, go watch that lesson on Bollinger Bands. Not named after me, by the way, Steve Ballinger. I wish it was. It's somebody else. But if we look at Tesla and look at Bollinger Bands, and this is the year 2020, and this is for Tesla. If you go to the far left, that would be January 1st of 2020, and you can see the price rise all the way to December 31st to the far right of it. And I don't have the price on here, but you can kind of see from the chart, there's definitely a definite upward trend. What we do know is it went up 700%, right? So if you look at it on the far left there, and we're using our Bollinger Bands, we can see that it definitely had a walking up the band, right? Our price is in a strong trend. It's walking up the band. That continued. So if we had bought on January 1st, let's say, we would see that, that really went up and walked the band. Now, once we hit in February and March, COVID becomes known as a global pandemic. Governments start taking action. Things are getting shut down. All securities went down, particularly stocks went down. And you can see that Tesla went way down and it actually walked the band down, right? It was walking on a downward trend of band. But then it came off that low after the first early COVID announcements, started to go to the middle, and then really had this long, strong, walking up the band with a squeeze in there. But even when it squeezed a little bit, it stayed on the band, on the upper of the band. It got narrower, but it stayed on the upper part of the band. And then we had walked up the band a little bit more, came off a little bit of a pullback there. And then right before the second squeeze, see how narrow that got, the second squeeze, and then it walked up the band again. And so now we're all the way up into whatever that is, September, October, and it starts to kind of flatten out there towards the kind of the last part of the year, and then the end of the year in a more of a squeeze type situation. I think you would see a lot of profit taking also really just from a money management standpoint towards the end of the year. And then one thing we know is in the first couple of days of 2021, Tesla stock had a little bit of sell-off because people were taking profits then. They didn't want to take them in 2020 because maybe they had, from a tax standpoint, had some good profits, so they took it later in the year. And that caused prices to kind of narrow and fall in the second squeeze. or the third squeeze in this example, or what really happened here with Tesla. So if we were to look at Tesla in the news media, we'd say, this is crazy, it's up 700%, this makes no sense at all, it's a bubble. But if we applied a technical analysis indicator to it, when it's looking at things like market sentiment, we'd say, no, this makes perfect sense. Look, it's walking up the band several times. There's a time when I maybe wanted to get out right at COVID, wanted to get out of everything for the first COVID announcement. So other than that, it had a strong walk up the band. And again, if people are buying it, that means it's going to drive the price up. It doesn't necessarily always have to make sense, but it can be explained and understood and traded using technical analysis as a tool. So Tesla in 2020, fundamentals never made sense. I had people in my courses say, this doesn't make sense. Why is this going on? But if we apply that technical analysis, it kind of made perfect sense, didn't it? Because their buyers were really strongly buying and they were not coming off that. They wanted to buy and wanted that price to go up, and they stuck in there and they fought off sellers, they fought off short sellers, they fought off everything. They believed in the security and then they rode that up. And if you bought in January 1st and you rode it all the way to December 31st, well, you had a nice 700% gain. Maybe you could buy yourself one of those nice Teslas, as far as an automobile. So that's where sometimes what can happen is fundamental analysis is great. I love fundamental analysis, but this is also occasions when technical analysis can really explain what's truly going on from a market sentiment standpoint, and really more from a technical and a dispassionate, unemotional way. That 700% rise, people got very emotional either for or against. You want to watch people get emotional, think about that as far as what was happening with Tesla in 2020. But technical analysis gave us a different look.